Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's debate. And the motion of this debate is both timely and controversial for nowadays. Before we begin, let me briefly explain the format of the debate. So each side will open with the arguments, and then it will be followed by rebuttals. And then they will have a round of audience questions, as well as the closing statements. But before, we will vote for the motion or against it. And the winner today is determined not by the total votes, but by the shift in minds in the opinion. So what matters is not where the audience starts, but who succeeds in changing minds. And let's begin with a quick question. Just think about the last time when an AI algorithm made a decision about your life. Maybe a job application, which was filled out even before a human saw it, a score record, a loan approval, or maybe the news feed that actually decides for you whether you were allowed to see it, to read it or not. So ask yourself, who built that system? And whose worlds does it have in mind? And here is an uncomfortable truth. AI doesn't invent biases. So our today's motion is the House believes that AI is biased. Well, we think it is biased, but today we will be fighting and deciding whether it should remain biased in the future and to reflect the human world, or whether we should build something better, whether it should be as neutral as possible. AI learns from us because it is built by human teams, it is trained on human data, using enormous information like books, news, websites, historical reports. All these, good or bad, already contain biases. And I asked ChatGPT and Clouder if they are biased. And they acknowledged that, yes, we are biased, and here is the list of biases. Cultural biases, political assumptions, gender stereotypes, even, unequal racist representation, and also the language imbalance. And they also, for example, acknowledge that they tend to reflect Western and English-speaking perspectives more strongly because this kind of content dominate the internet. So what's especially interesting is that AI biases comes not only from the data it's trained upon, but also from the decisions, the choices that developers make while designing the systems. So every time it's all about human values and arguments. So let's begin with the vote. But before that, I would like to introduce our speakers, our debaters for today. Arguing in favor is Nikolas, Markou, Managing Partner at Electi Consulting and Expert Advertiser to the Cyprus National AI Taskforce. So Nikolas believes that AI should be biased, should remain biased. And arguing against is Christina Orfanidou, Head of Group AI at Columbia Group. So let's begin with your vote. Please raise your hands if you believe that AI is biased and should be biased to reflect the world. Let's calculate the, not so many hands, by the way. Okay.
I need more hands to make it challenging.
Yes, we need more hands. But we're not forcing. Okay, and how many believe AI should be made neutral? As neutral as possible. Wow, way more hands. Anybody calculating? Artemis, can you help me with calculating the hands? Because afterwards, we will decide who shifted the minds, not the number of the hands. So remember these numbers. And now, Nikolas, the floor is yours. Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nikolas Markou, Head of AI at Electi Consulting. My main thesis is that AI bias is there. It cannot be avoided. It is built into the system. You cannot build AI with no bias. What you can do, though, is define what it means to have good or bad, which is not a metric. It's a value system that is a societal thing. We can measure it, and we can adjust it based on our needs. So the thesis goes as this. Your AI bias is there. Inductive bias is inherent in everyone, humans and machines alike. Dataset bias is there. Nobody can argue against that. What we can argue about is that when we start removing bias for any way, we should be doing that very carefully to adjust for what we want, not for neutralizing, because that will create an unusable machine, but to decide on what is best for us and what our values are. So, floor to you.
Oh, thank you so much, the affirmative side, for your perspective. And now we turn to the opposition.
Okay, so the fact that AI is biased, well, it's a fact. And arguing that it's difficult to unbias systems, it's like saying that all the centuries of documented discrimination in the world cannot be removed and should remain as they are. If we build the AI systems without really cleaning up these intrinsic biases that sometimes are introduced without really anyone planning to introduce them. Sometimes they're just there in the data. If we continue that, then someone would argue that we are describing reality, but we are describing an ugly reality and replicating and accelerating it. So I will not disagree with Nikolas that it's not easy and it depends on the situation, but I will say that definitely AI should not reflect the data in the world as they are now, because there are many hidden compounding factors that result in us accelerating and scaling these biases and the unfavorable opinions that exist in the world.
Thank you so much for the strong opening, Christina. So now, we are moving to the rebuttal round. And you will need to respond directly to one another, not using the previous arguments, but something else, responding directly to what has been said. And yes, please, Nikolas, your turn.
All right. So the main argument from Christina is that it is difficult to do so, and describing the ugly world right now will move forward our own biases. I will say that removing any kind of bias from history right now will be like will be an introduction of biasing in itself, right? So what we have currently is we know how to train these systems. We have artifacts that are there, the binaries, they are fixed. We have the cookbook to remake them. Once we make them, we can pick them for any kind of bias that we want. Once that's fixed, right, then we can readjust for any kind of bias that we don't want. If we go back into the past and just starting changing history, who makes the rules for all? That will be an extremely bad outcome for everybody. And that will be introducing bias in itself, with whatever that may mean in the future.
Thank you so much. Please, Christina. Mm-hmm.
So I don't agree with that, because I believe that even though there is, of course, subjectivity in what is biased and what is not, which is something that you, Nikola, was alluding to, there are some common values that are generally accepted. So we have some common values to protect individuals, and which is why we also have laws and regulations, because these laws and regulations that we all respect are introducing some sort of ethics, and rules for our way of being. So even though, yes, there is bias even in removing the bias, there are some common rules, and I believe that AI governance, which is what is going to control the degree of bias of a system, is an extension of existing laws and regulations that protect fundamental rights of people.
Thank you so much for this perspective. And now we will open the floor to your questions, our dear audience. Now you can bravely challenge both sides. So please, if you have any question, yeah, thank you so much. Artemis, can we have up? Ah, Slido. Oh, okay, great, yeah. We can use the technology anyway, so we are all about STEM tonight. Please use Slido. We can be really provocative today, so don't be shy.
It's really hard to scan the QR code because your stand is
Oh,
in front of the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the microphone is better. Yeah, we are all also about human connections, not only technology.
So I will make my question publicly then. I believe for myself that bias will be introduced one way or another. So either in the beginning or in the end there will be bias. I just think that the bias should be introduced by the user himself or themselves, and it should not be introduced from the beginning. So you create it as a clean slate, and then from the user's beliefs and their history and whatever, they will introduce their bias inside the system. So it should not be integrated from before. That's what I believe. I would like to hear your opinions on this.
Please, Christina.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really thinking of systems where people are introducing biases. I'm thinking of systems where there was not enough critical thinking in how the parameters of the AI were defined, and whereby the intrinsic biases in data are introduced into the system. And as an example, systems in the US that have been tested where they are calculating probability of reoffending for incarcerated people that are always giving much higher probabilities to African Americans. So in that case, it's not that someone went and built the compass system by saying, let's discriminate against African Americans. It's that they introduced race as a parameter without taking into consideration confounding factors like financial circumstances, increased policing for African Americans, and all of these things. So I don't even understand the notion of a user introducing a bias into the system. I think no one should be introducing biases into the system. We should be reading the data, but we should be really critically selecting the factors that we will take into account in the decisioning of the systems to avoid the inadvertent bias which is hidden in data sets.
Thank you so much. Nikolas, please.
All right, I'm going to go a different direction here, right? So everybody has bias. Let's define it first, right? It's a systematic preference encoding inside the decision, either in the model or in the data. It doesn't really matter, all right? So what you're saying is that we could create a system that is unbiased. That is not possible. Every system, by definition, has some kind of inductive bias. In order to build anything that generalizes even a tiny bit and not just memorizes what it has seen, we need to have some kind of bias. This is called inductive bias. Christina knows this. It's her thesis. She knows about this. That's not the argument here, right? That's the basis, all right? So what we're arguing here is that you can go back into the future, into the past, and remove everything that created the data, so you can remove the bias from anything that you can. My thesis is completely different. We keep the data. We don't change anything of that. We understand the harm that may have come from this, but we also understand the good stuff. The good stuff is now we have a model. We have a cookbook to remake it. We know exactly the process, right? Then we have it fixed. Then we can interrogate it. Then we can adjust for whatever society needs right? Or the user needs. We can have a vote on that. A human cannot do that. You cannot replicate a human and ask him 10,000 times the same question and take statistics on that, right? So the bias should be there in your face to measure it, to adjust for it if you want, right? To vote societally on what is to be done. But the past should not be changed. That is the position.
Can I counter?
Sure.
Please.
Yes.
Please do.
Yes, I think a fundamental element for what you're suggesting to work is the awareness of the bias. And sometimes there is no awareness of the bias. So yes, if we kept the data as they are to reflect the world and we said, let's build a system with the inherent biases and then let's unbias it, to fix it, we need to understand the biases. And I think in many cases, there is no awareness of the bias.
That is correct. And 2010, algorithmic fairness was not even a thing. Right now, you have conferences, you have theses, you have master degrees, you have PhDs on that. It's a big thing, and it's important. And why it's important? It's because we have the artifact, the binary, we have the model, and we can interrogate it, and we can see it. It's not locked up in our mind. It's not locked up behind a paywall or a specific human-made decision or an algo code somewhere we cannot see. We have it. We can do it, right? The measurement is the key. Now we can do it. And if we want, we can adjust to it. Whereas before, we didn't. I've measured them. There are 180 human cognitive bias. That's the ones we have found. Maybe there are more, right? Nobody adjusts for those, but they are there, okay?
Thank you, Nikolas. Let's move to another question. Even though bias, at the end of the day, there's also bias. What are your thoughts? Maybe somebody who was asking can also add something? You mean that, just to specify, it means that every information is biased anyway. Even if you try to make it neutral, it's going to be biased.
You cannot make neutral. It's like then averaging over all facts, all right? Say you are in finance. Let's say you're in finance. The inductive bias is your core thesis. If you remove all the speculative stuff and the randomness and the noise, the inductive bias, it's your thesis. You cannot remove that, otherwise you are going just mean averages, right? So you keep it biased as it is, you measure the bias that you are interested in, and you fix for it, right? That's my thesis.
But
Thanks,
again,
Christina,
I have
please.
to counter, sorry, because it's a debate. Yes.
Yes.
So there are some fundamental principles that should be widely accepted, So not everything is a bias. The fact that if we make employment decisions, the race of the person shouldn't make a difference. Is this a bias? If I remove the race of the person from the AI system? No, it's not a bias. It's something which is widely accepted as a fundamental principle of equality. So the same in terms of decisions about the effect of gender on opportunity. So what I want to say is that there are some widely accepted principles, I've said it before, which can define how we build the systems, which are not a matter of opinion. Oh, I think it's okay to discriminate based on race, and then Nikolas thinks it's not
Sorry,
okay.
Christina, how did we find those biases? Is it by measuring the exact artifact that we are given? Isn't that correct?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so if we had removed that or encoded in a different way because we went back and changed the past, that would mean we introduced bias in a completely different way. Isn't that correct?
I don't understand what you're saying. We went back and...
In other words?
Because also I'm not arguing that we should go and change the data. I'm arguing that we should be better AI systems. The way we model and we make decisions about the specs of the system should change.
Yes.
We shouldn't go and erase the data. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm pretty sure that was the original thesis?
Yeah, we have the question here. So even no bias at the end of the day, that's also bias. So what are your thoughts? Let's move to another question. I think it's really interesting because you also mentioned race and nationalities. Isn't removing bias dangerous, especially if you want to remove discrimination? For example, Google tried to remove bias in the image generation of Gemini, resulting in an accurate representation of historical people and events. What are your precise and brief thoughts on that? Nikolas, please.
That was trying to remove bias beforehand, right? Like I know the story, right? The founding fathers were rendering as African Americans, right? That was removing the race component from it. Now, if we let it be like it was, right, and they were rendering correctly, then and we decided for whatever reason that was problematic, then it was going to be fixed on top of that. But what they did is like they didn't build into it at all, meaning they debiased before biasing, making it like unusable. And the usability thing is like a big thing. Like if you don't have something usable, then we are not discussing here about our AI. We are discussing a model that cannot do anything.
Thank you so much. Christina, please.
No, I agree. They did it wrong. I mean, there's no question about it. It's not something generic. If you remove bias, then you're building a bad system. If you do it right, then you're not. So Google did it wrong.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And the next question is, if AI is intentionally kept biased, how can people rely on it for honest and objective opinions when making important decisions? So what should be done for this?
All right.
Nikolas, please.
You should be doing exactly what you should be doing whenever a new model comes out, right? What people are doing right now is like they do what I call vibe evaluating or vibe testing. It answered a question correctly, it's fine. What you should be doing is like having considerate evaluations about whatever the task you are interested in. That means if you are biased about a specific issue, you should be addressing that 1,000 times, 10,000 times, same questions, different parameters. Try again and again and again. See how it measures up. That's how you properly evaluate. Now, and that is the proper way to actually use the system afterwards, because afterwards you can adjust for the bias that you don't want.
Thank you so much. Christina,
Yeah.
please, your turn.
Oh, it's gone. If AI is intentionally kept biased. I mean, I'm not sure what cases we are talking about where it's intentionally kept biased. Actually, I think Nikolas and I don't have a very different opinion about this, about what the discussion is. So, obviously, no AI system should intentionally be kept biased, and this is what my argument is. And especially because AI systems now are not, they are reflecting unbiased opinions, but they're also making them times 1,000. It's like the discussion about should in the US you're allowed to have a handgun or a rifle machine. You know, the handgun is the one biased guy, the one biased doctor or insurer, and the rifle machine is the biased AI system within the healthcare system or the insurance system. So, yeah, of course we should not leave AI systems biased in order to trust the outcomes. At the same time, I'm not a fan, and even it's not a question of me being a fan, even the AI regulation for any decisions that impact individuals and their welfare requires to have a human in the loop. So, you know, I also concur with what Nikolas said before.
Many thanks. Thank you so much. Well, we have a lot of questions, but the time is limited. So the last question goes from myself, because I believe it's very important to mention. If an AI system consistently produces biased outcomes, who should be held responsible? The developer, the company, the government, or the AI itself? So who define?
Who is responsible? Yes. I mean, the EU AI Act has a clear definition of accountability. So if which is very complex, I cannot explain it now in the time we have, but if you are a deployer of a system, then you are accountable for its outcomes. But for you to deploy the system, you need the developer of the system to have given you the right reassurances and the right documentation and, and the conformity with the non-bias and non-discrimination controls that they applied. So at the end of the day, who is accountable for it is always the company that deploys the system. But the company itself has to take some assurances from the provider.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for your opinion. Nikolas, please.
Actually, that is the proper response regulatory-wise, right? You have to expect, the EU expects people developing the systems to provide these assurances. Now, that's talking about the laws governing the thing. But the thing itself, right, the bias comes really from the developer, who makes the choices about the data set, who makes the choices about the neural network, who makes the choices. There's a bazillion little choices that you make that introduce bias. So that is the part where the bias is introduced. And of course, the data sets that are consumed to produce the system.
Thank you so much, Nikolas. So now we are having the closing remarks. Please, opposition, your turn. What you can say to persuade the audience finally. This is your final try.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think in general, my opinion is that we should not let statistical artifacts of history determine the future. And in many cases, if we are not taking the right measures when building AI systems, either in the way that we interpret and process the data or the way we build the models, this is what we are doing. We are taking some statistics of the past which are bad and are replicating and also multiplying them. So, of course, there are choices baked either way, but we should build the systems to make them conscious and accountable and not let them run loose in order to make the decisions that AI systems make better for the world.
Thank you. And proposition, your turn.
All right. My closing argument is this. Bias is not a defect of AI. It's why AI works. What makes a model biased, we apply a fixed rule that we can test. We want that to be as close to reality as possible when it is made. We do not want to go back and apply normalizing to everything. Otherwise, we will be getting, it's not an efficiency argument. It's not about getting the best out of this. It's like getting a thing that actually learns something beyond memorization. What we should be doing is getting that thing, the output, and then applying our normalizing values on top of it. Like if you want non-discrimination, you should put it on top of that, and it should be clear to everybody that is consuming that thing that it has been adjusted for that thing, for that specific thing. It should not be something that the developer goes in or the government goes in and removes everything from the past in order to clear up the future. It should be something that runs on top of our past, respecting that is, and adjusting the future on top of it.
Thank you for your statement, Nikolas. So now, after hearing both sides, let's see, has anyone changed their mind or not? So the motion is, the House believes that AI is biased and should remain biased in the future. Please raise your hands now. Who thinks so? I see that, okay. Kind of the same amount, I think. Maybe one vote less. Yes.
But some people left.
Yes, some people left. And another opinion is that it should be built as neutral as possible. Please raise your hands. Oh, amazing. Wow. Congratulations.
To be fair, I think this is what Nikolas was saying as well, in a different way. So
it's a pre or post argument, right?
Well, anyway, we should have had debate, about it.
Yeah,
So
anyway,
that was really nice to listen to all your remarks, your statements. Thank you so much for keeping this debate so engaging and thought-provoking. And thanks a lot to the audience for being with us and for being such an engaged audience as well. Thanks a lot.